Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce, the holiday edition, I would say. I'm Gary Graves in Louisville, Kentucky, and in Maryland, Upper Marlboro, Maryland, I'm assuming John Webster, my good friend, esteemed colleague, and all-around Notre Dame fan. John, how you doing?
Hey, Gary, I'm doing great, man. Yeah, I'm in Upper Marlboro. I haven't headed to Salisbury yet, but trust and believe it's coming in a couple days. We're heading down to the Eastern Shore. But today's going to be a great day, man. We got two great segments, man. Our first one, we're going to talk to Jimmy Bell and get a recap on the World Cup. And then on our second segment, we're going to have our own Richard Myles come back and talk to us about the Washington Commanders, what could have been and what was not. That should be a lot of fun. But without any further ado, my great friend, colleague, Jimmy Bell, how you doing, man?
I am great, and I'm just going to tell you guys I'm coming to you live from California, Maryland.
All right. That's down in Southern Maryland, right?
Yes, sir. Right across from Pax River Naval Base.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I've been away for a while, but I haven't forgotten where some places are from my UPS days.
Hey, I can relate to that, Gary. I did a short tour at UPS when I was in college. Had to memorize every zip code in the state of Maryland. Oh my goodness! And what they used to do to make sure you were checking the boxes, they would tape your check onto the box on the conveyor belt. So if you weren't checking the boxes, your check got packed in a UPS tractor trailer to go, God knows where.
Oh yeah, they played rough. They played rough, and I'm probably going back 40 years to college. You know, when I was there, it was rough. I forgot how many packages we had to unload per minute or whatever, but it was a lot. I mean, that was a workout at 4 o'clock in the morning. Let me tell you. But speaking of delivering, I have to use that as a segue. The World Cup, I think it delivered on excitement. I think it delivered the champion that the sport needed, and maybe really what the sport wanted in terms of Lionel and what he was able to do in getting Argentina there. I guess we can just go right into it. What was your take on it, and just what does it mean? And I don't even want to get into the whole who's the greatest thing, because I'm kind of prejudiced, and I think John is too. How do you feel about that? But you can answer that after you talk about the quality of this year's World Cup.
Well, the thing I think the most important takeaway is this year is that's bar none. I'm 57, so I've effectively been watching World Cup cycles for over 40 years. That's easily the best final I've seen. Not even close. There's nothing. That's probably one of the greatest sporting events I've ever seen live in person. On the television, etc. It gave you everything you wanted. And I think from a promotional standpoint, from where the games developed and evolved, you also saw the shrinking planet, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So you saw Morocco make a run all the way to the semifinals. You saw Croatia almost get back to the finals. And most folks would think Croatia was, a top 4-6 team in Europe, much less, a 10 or 12 team worldwide. But it shows you that there's great players and great coaches, and the game has evolved, that it's that competitive all the way around. And then as far as one player versus another, I will take this opportunity to say Argentina was my pick when it started. And I don't have sentimentality because I'm half Italian. So if your name doesn't end in an I or an O, it's hard for me to root for you, even if you speak Spanish. But I also think that Kylian Mbappe showed to everybody he's the future, and everybody knows it. And so the game's safe. The game's going to be great. More people are going to watch. It is the universal language. As I've said to folks, it doesn't matter where I am. I can always ask somebody, who do you support? And they immediately know who you're talking about, and we can start a conversation. And whether that be in Europe or my friends from Central Africa or being in the Caribbean or Central America, et cetera. And so the winners were everybody. You saw a great product. You saw a great game. You saw a great finish. No one could argue with any part of that. And so I think the game's in great shape.
John, question. I'm John. Jim, question for you. It's been a long, it's been a long week, Jim. I don't even know what my name is now. Argentina was up 2-0 at half, and for a good portion of the second half. How unusual is it for a team to score 2 goals like that and push the game into sudden death, overtime?
Well, I'll tell you 2 things real quick. It's interesting that you seize on that from a layman's term or a mid-place, being a basketball person primarily, et cetera. In the game, we always say the 2-0 lead's the hardest one to defend because you're not totally desperate, life and death defending, and you're not sure whether or not to still go forward. And once that first goal goes in, now it only takes a couple of seconds for you to be in a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I'll tell you is one of my young proteges from 20 years back always said to me, the greatest thing about soccer right now is the golden goal. And what I said to him was, that's the worst thing about soccer right now. And I told him, go back, excuse me, to 1984 and watch France play Germany in overtime and watch both teams score in overtime. And then you'll know that playing a regulation overtime period is a great thing. And so for me, rooting for Argentina, once Mbappe scores, you're in trouble. I thought it was a really well officiated game. There's no real dispute about any of the calls per se. And I think the other thing that I will say, I had some young relatives around me that were in their 17, 15-year age. And I pointed out to them, I said, watch, he's going to make his. Watch, he's going to miss. Because at a certain point, you see the look on the player's face. You see the immense pressure that they're under. And I tell you 2 things. Messi and Mbappe could have stood there and shot penalties for the rest of the day without missing because they're both hard guys who know what they're doing with extreme confidence. And there's nothing. As a former college goalkeeper myself, there's nothing worse than being a goalkeeper and getting your whole hand on something and it still drags it into the net. And when Mbappe scored the first one, it hit him in the hand. I went, oh, that's a problem because that sticks in your head. And once you get to thinking about it, then you're done. There's no, and yeah, I can equate it to a lot of other sports. But once you walk up there and think, I just need to get it over the front of the rim, that's got back of the rim bouncing back in your face written all over it. And you got no chance of making the second free throw. And so, for me, I got everything, just everything from that game.
Mm-hmm. I guess about the goalkeeping or about the goalkeeper, obviously with every save in penalty kicks, I mean, exuberance, that's an understatement. It was almost at a point of showmanship. And I wonder if that got in the heads of some of the French players. Because those guys, they were very athletic. In getting to the point, very athletic. You saw what they did in making up the deficit. But it seemed like once he got a hand on one and was really seemed pumped up, that kind of got in their heads that they were thinking when they came up there, and body language being everything. That when Argentina strolls up, I mean, they're like very powerful. I mean, they're very, determined, deliberate. That's the word I was looking for. The France, they looked kind of tentative. Is that a way to really sum it up? Did you see the same thing?
I would greatly agree. I always say that nobody should go to the spot that doesn't want to be there, and that's on the coach. If the player can't handle it, no matter how great he is, then the last thing you want to do is force him to grab the ball and take that walk. And it is the loneliest walk in sports, bar none. And conversely, what I've always said to guys about being a goalkeeper primarily is once you let the second one in, that's when it really gets beyond difficult. Because the truth of the matter is now you're overthinking it. And the minute you start thinking instead of, akin to baseball, I'm just looking for the ball to put the bat on it. But if you start thinking too much, now you're finished and you're done. And so conversely too, I would always tell guys that I was coaching, just wait and go get it. Don't think, go get it. And I saw Hugo Lloris after the third penalty, and I turned to my protege at 17. I said, he's finished. Look at him. He doesn't know what to do next. He's thinking too much. And though that's the other weird thing about the penalty situation, especially, 85,000 raucous fans, your coach can't help you at that point. And I take this second to say that too. One of the most interesting things that happened in that tournament was the first Croatia penalty kick shootout. The Croatian coach took off his best player, Luka Modric, and that was brilliant. Because when he did, now he doesn't have to let him shoot with tired legs, and his teammates don't expect him to. And the guys he brought on all made their penalty kicks. They were clearly the best shooters, and they had a plan from the last 5 minutes of regulation through overtime that if we get the penalties, we're going to win. We know what we're doing. There's an old saying in the shootout that generally speaking, 3 things will happen in 10 kicks. The goalkeeper will make a save, somebody will miss everything, and the woodwork will do the rest. And so you saw all of that. And again, some of the best players in the world, again, I'm Italian. So I think it was 2000, Baggio missed. And arguably the best player on the planet missed by 5 feet. And that's what I always tell folks too, is that there's a big difference between a save and a miss. When somebody says he missed a penalty, I say, wait a minute, was it saved or did he miss everything? Because missing everything means I didn't have to really do anything. That's my favorite save of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, let's see. If I recall, there were 2 misses. I mean, one was wide left, and I think one was like over the crossbar, and that was when I thought it's like, well, I mean, from covering World Cup before, that one miss in penalty kicks really puts you behind, especially when one team comes up and makes their first 2, you miss that second one, you're already, trying to play behind, and you're already thinking about how do I try to get it by them. And I think that's what resulted in the misses. But yeah, again, that for France, I think that's what sunk them. Once they hit, what is it, their first 2, it might have been like their first 3 at that point, and it was just kind of easy for Argentina at that moment.
Well, and it's the truth. If you're relaxed and you have to shoot to make it continue and convert, man, that goal gets smaller. Mm-hmm. You make that walk by yourself, and I don't care how loud it is. All you can hear is your heart pounding and your brain thinking. And and again, it's a lot. There's a lot of different things. It's like whether it's free throws in basketball or you can't stand over a 2. Everybody always talks about the 2-foot tap in golf. Yeah, I've never stood over that putt my entire life because that thing when you take your eye off it, it'll jump out of the hole in a minute. And when that goal starts getting smaller and your heart starts racing and you start thinking about, I need to do this, you're already in a bad way. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate. It's almost as much mental as it is physical. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of the best players can't handle it.
Yeah.
Jimmy, let me ask you this as we're coming to the close of the segment. take your crystal ball out. Look ahead 4 years from now. Where does the US of A sit 4 years from now?
I'm going to tell you two things, and I'm going to entice you to have me back. I've read a bunch of articles now. The field's going to expand to 48.
Okay.
So it's almost a foregone conclusion that we're going to be in the tournament somewhere. We're going to be playing at home. We're going to have great conditions. The real thing about it is coaching and tactics will come down to play because the tournament will be greatly different than what you saw this time. You might not play everybody in your group segment in order to qualify, or you might have games played in the group segment that aren't played simultaneously at the end. The infamous handshake games where I'll let you score one, but you can't score more than one so we can both advance. And all of those tactics and how you play those games are going to be that much more complicated. Now, I'm just a coach. I'm just a fan, just a player. But we're going to need better coaching and better tactics to advance through that tournament. And there's going to be weaker teams in the tournament. But again, there's going to be better teams in a tournament too. And it is going to be a much, much, much more wide open affair. The last time they played with less than 32 teams, Italy won by not winning any games in the group stage. They went straight through with defensive draws. They gave up no goals, scored no goals, and advanced. And then they wound up leading the tournament in goals scored when they opened it up and started to play. And that part of it is going to be wild and wildly interesting.
Jimmy, as always, you bring it strong to the mic. We appreciate you.
Yep.
And we're not going to wait 4 years before we have you back, buddy. You're coming back before then, because I'm quite sure you may have something to say about a few other sports as well. But, man, thank you so much, Jimmy. The World Cup was a lot of fun. Argentina, hats off to him and Lionel Messi. John Pitt is very happy as well. Jim Bell, thanks, man.
Thank you guys for having me. I've really enjoyed it. I hope to see more of you soon. Ready to be here whenever you need me.
Yeah. Hey, one last question. Who's the greatest, Pelé or Messi?
The truth is, if you're asking me, it's Pele. And I think what you'll get from that is you have to be a certain age to respect that.
Amen. Yep.
And younger guys will skew, but you have to be. And I would say this, Kylian Mbappe is the future. That guy's the truth. And I give you one quick name. Erling Haaland is a 21-year-old now playing for Man City from Dortmund. He's another one. He's unbelievable. The future of the game is bright.
All right. Jimmy, thanks so much, man. We will catch you down the road before too long. Much sooner than later. Take care, enjoy, and Merry Christmas to you.
Have a great holiday and be safe.
All right,
you too, my friend. Take care.
Right, take care.
Next up, Myles, our old friend, talking about, well, not just the minor football league, but the NFL, the letter after M. And specifically the team here in Washington, or I should say there in Washington, a team that I still follow. I can't quite call myself a fan, but aside from that, coming off a very, very tough loss on Sunday night, we could sit here and talk about the officiating. But Myles, let's just get right into it. What do you think of the Commanders now? Are they still in good shape, or is it tough sledding from now on, especially from what I can tell with divisional games left?
Not at all. I think right now they're in an even better position in terms of you look at the Giants' schedule and their schedule. And Mr. Webster might think that I'm just, dreaming, but the Washington will beat the 49ers. And of course, there's no way that the Giants, I can see the Giants losing 2 out of the 3 or possibly all 3.
Okay, let me make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, okay? Because I think sometimes on this show, our equipment may not be right because maybe we messed up a word you said. So I heard you just say that the Washington Commanders will beat the San Francisco 49ers. That's not what you said, is it?
Yeah, I want to make sure I heard that right too.
Absolutely. Remember now, y'all, and I'm going to say this, you think that all of y'all thought they didn't have a chance against the Eagles, and then you see them punch the Eagles in the mouth, and y'all was in awe. But why was that?
Time out. I, on this show, predicted they would beat the Eagles, and you know this. You know I predicted they would beat the Eagles. That's a good point. You talking about editing? I'm going to tell you what is not going to need to be edited the next thing I say. Gary said something earlier about eventually Philadelphia's going to lose a game this year. I agree with you, Gary. I totally agree with you. They are going to lose tonight to the Washington Commanders.
I'm speechless.
The Washington Commanders will beat the Philadelphia Eagles tonight.
Is that game at FedEx Field?
It is in Philadelphia.
I'm speechless again.
Going back to what I was saying, and my reason for saying that, and not because I'm a hometown guy, which I am a hometown guy, is because the Commanders playing really good ball. And you and I know we're not going to get into what happened in that game because we saw it. It's not like we were Ray Charles and had to feel that way to see what went on in the game. Washington's biggest problem was when they got down the red zone several times, and every time they drove the ball, these mysterious flags came up for some reason or another. But we're not going to get in that. But I think overall, they're gelling at the right time. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong. And I don't think there's going to be as much as a setback than most people think.
The game Sunday night, there were 3 penalties that really stuck out. The one with the 2-point conversion, the one with McLaurin and where he allegedly didn't line up on the line of scrimmage correctly, allegedly. And then the last offensive play of the game for the Commanders when Samuels basically had his arms held down and didn't have a chance to catch the pass. I think all 3 of those are questionable, but I also want to get your opinion, Myles. I think even though those things happen, the Commanders still did not play well. They still struggled and they still did not execute the way they really need to execute.
And I agree with you on that, but also you have to also look at, a lot of those drives, even the announcers said, holding the call was really questionable. This ladies and gentlemen, we all know sports and we understand it. You can call holding every down, really, okay?
Yeah.
Just when you get your hands outside of the man jersey, they'll call holding. Now, let's flip the coin. Tell me if the Giants offensive line wasn't holding. They was holding and the official was looking right at it. And I don't want people to think I'm really biased. I just like to see, if you beat me. But the officials should not be a part of the game in terms of making calls that are questionable. Now, yes, it was off keel, but then again, you can always, get Washington. Every time we get out of rhythm, we can be running the ball, and then we come up with some crazy reverse or something like that. I don't know if they think they're tricking. I think they're tricking themselves. And I know, let you go in and say, let him stay there, Mr. Webster, because I think he'll agree with me on that. sometimes we tend to take those coaches' hats and really think that, we are better than what we are. All we have to do is stay basic. When you say?
Yeah, I think the play calling is questionable. I think, like you said, they stay basic. I do not think that Scott Turner is Norv Turner. I think some of his play calling leaves a lot to be desired. I think you have to look at what you have in Heineke, and I think you have to try to tailor an offense around him that is his strong point. I think a no huddle would be good for him. I think rolling out of the pocket would be good for him. And I'm not a football guy, so I could be completely wrong.
I got to hear my man because I know he got something. Let's hear him because he's sitting down there, he's taking it in. But
but some quarterbacks, and like I was telling John before, Sunday night was the first time I really had a chance to see Heineke extensively and how he leads that offense, and it's shaky at times, but I still feel like it's effective. And the Carson Wentz experiment it should be over. The thing about what John said, maybe about no huddle, that you can send a guy like him up to the line where he just acts on instinct. He doesn't have to think. And like we were talking about in another segment about thinking in football, soccer, that no huddle. He goes up there on instinct. He goes up there with adrenaline, and that's when he makes things happen. As to the play calling, I'll never understand in the NFL, and this is with every offensive coordinator, where you get cute in what I call textbook situations. I hate that, and maybe it's because I'm old school. As a guard, I feel like we were challenged. All you got to do, move them back 1 yard. It's like what Bill Parcells always said. Smash mouth football. Then you throw the pass. Washington got away from that. Robinson was running effectively. They got away from that, and they put Heineke in a position where he had to really kind of think. And I'm not saying he made decisions, but it's like he wasn't instinctual. I think part of that is what led to the fumble that led to that first touchdown. Well, that and the fact that they just didn't block on either side. It's like he got killed on his blind side. I mean, heck, he got killed on his good side by Thibodeau. I mean, he was almost in the backfield before the ball got to Heineke's hands. That's how effective he was, at least early on, where he was a factor. But I don't know what it is about analytics or whatever it is that they use to just get away from textbook football.
Right. I think they use that because it sounds intelligent when they talk about analytics. It just sounds something intelligent. They want football to seem more brainy, if I may use that term loosely. Keep it simple and stupid. And that's where Washington is more effective. Keep it simple and stupid. We running at you. Either you're going to block me or you're not. You understand? Mm-hmm. Also, he had the Thibodeau. I mean, did you see when he ran that fake and booted? Thibodeau didn't know where to go. He went, and Heineke went down the field for what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They should have been doing that all day. They could have ran 3 plays. You run a dime. I'll tell you something else that I was really disturbed and didn't understand. You run the ball up in there, you fake it, pop pass, right in the middle of the field. Wasn't nobody there. That tight end could have run in the middle of the field all day long. Nobody was there. You could have ran the dime, okay? You could have faked the dive, hit the tight end, cross the middle short, and let him go off the line about 5 yards. Then the next one, then you can come back, fake it, and roll out. They could have beat the Giants with 3 plays and just running consistently, because when they're line blocking straight ahead, they're more effective because the backs we got, they're running. It's just simple as that. But you just got to give them a little room. They could have ran those plays, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm also want to apologize to y'all in 1 second. And they'd have ran that they could have killed the Giants. Then don't give them opportunity to go in the huddle. Go no huddle, as y'all say. Go no huddle, run them 3 plays. I guarantee you could have went up and down the field on the Giants and kept the ball all day. Now, I want to just step away from this conversation just for briefly, because I want to apologize to y'all when I said the great brain robbery getting Carson Wentz. That was maybe, I thought it would be a great thing because of the Sonny Jurgensen trade, if you remember. But you're right, Carson Wentz, he's not the answer. When a lot of people was talking to me after the game, they said, what you think they need to go back? I said, no, because if it's not broke, don't fix it. And it really wasn't broke. We had a few miscues and stuff, and it cost us. Now, but if you go back to the one up in New York, it was the same thing. The guy tackled Malone before the ball even got there, and they never called it. So my take on this, and I'll let y'all comment on this, they should never allow organized gambling in professional football. They should never legalize that, because in doing that, you can question a lot of calls. We saw Malone, even from Boys Club, you know that. You tell it, the line judge, you point to him, he'll tell you whether you're on or off. He pointed to him, he said, am I on? The guy said, yes. The guy had his hand in his pocket then. Did you see it? Don't let the ball would snap through the flag.
It was just bizarre, that and that was one. Well, okay, the pass interference that ended it, but was really bad. It was just like, it just went from bad to worse in maybe a 3 or 4 play sequence. I don't know why they would call something on a, they don't like pick plays. That's one thing.
Wasn't that terrible? Wait a minute. Yeah. That was awful.
Yeah.
He had nothing to do with the play, really. He's coming out in his pattern, really, and he came out. So it just seemed to me, and if I'm wrong, y'all correct me, you look at these things and you got to say, because Vegas, the money was on Washington. Everybody knew that. The money was on Washington. Vegas did not want to take that hit, and I think they just made a phone call. In my heart, I really believe this, and I don't want nobody talking about no theory or nothing. That's just in my heart, because I'm telling you, too many flags came out at the wrong time. You see them drive, the next thing you know, flag. Correct me if I'm wrong. Washington got a lot of penalties the first half. The Giants might have got 2.
Yeah. That disparity. That I don't know. I don't know what that was about. But to your point about organized gambling, I do think that in a lot of ways, what I don't like about that, what I think is somewhat hypocritical about that, is let's go back to the 1960s when Alex Karras and Paul Hornung were suspended for associating or whatever with gamblers or bad influences or whatever they called it back in those puritanical days. It was something that they were very, very resistant to. Now, here it is. They're embracing it. They're partnering, with online betting or whatever. We all know from real life that gambling is what drives pro sports. Gambling is what made the NCAA tournament, so big. But that sequence just reminded me of, like, if I was a betting man, that I would have been really upset, because that was a bad beat to me. It was a really bad beat. And it was just the way that it happened that I just thought was, that I don't want to say that the fix is in, but man, it sure.
I said it. People kept getting mad with me. I say the fix is in. Everybody said, "Why you say that?" You remember Paul Hornung got in trouble with the Green Bay Packers? You remember that?
Yeah.
I'm telling my age now.
Oh yeah, and we're probably close, but I'm too young to remember when it happened. But I read about it, and being here in Louisville, where Hornung is from, that's part of his legend.
And the guys just, but I don't want to put if it stink, it stink. You can't change that. And when you think about the way it happened, and I mean, it was just blatant. I mean, they could have called holding long time when he first ran around because the boy was holding him in the end zone. They looked right at it, didn't call nothing.
Yeah.
That was bad. See, that's leave a bad taste in your mouth because now you're saying, do they know who's going to win?
Mm-hmm.
You know, football becoming entertaining and nothing else now. You know what I mean? It just, you know, and God forbid if you bet on it. So, you know, I don't want people to say, and that's my opinion, and you know, you can take it with a grain of salt, but that looked bad. Well, you know what happened with the NBA officials used to, you remember that? You remember, see, and all this, what they say, if you don't learn about history, history will repeat itself, right?
Right,
okay.
Right.
Okay, now, think about, I know you read the book, 8 Men Out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they bought the World Series. They bought the pitcher, the shorts. You know, see, that stuff can really, really happen. If a guy's gonna give you, say, okay, just make a few calls, you got 500,000 in the bag in your locker room, or so we're gonna hand that to you. Come on now. I mean, well, you drop a flag here and there, but you know, to keep the numbers down because people really don't understand gambling. They really not betting on the win and the loss. They betting on how many receptions a certain receivers get, right? How many yards, how long possession. I mean, gambling is so, man, you have to be a real mathematician and really, you know, get involved with that because it's really bad. But what does it do for the game itself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It like I said, it kind of damages the integrity. All anybody wants, you know, as we wrap it up, all anybody wants from the officiating is consistency. I mean, whether it's football or basketball, all anybody wants from the refs is be consistent. Call it on both ends. You know, like if you're gonna police the game tightly, do it all the way through. Don't do it for 2 plays near the goal line, two game-changing plays near the goal line, and then swallow your whistle on the final final Commanders snap. That's the biggest thing I think that bothers a lot of folks. Yeah. It bothers me from an officiating standpoint because I mean I really don't have a stake in the Commanders or anything else like that, but you just want to see consistency. You want to see fairness when it comes to calls like that, and we've seen calls like that in other games. To be fair, this season, and that's the biggest problem. But Myles, as always, we really, really thank you for your insight and input and everything. Our boy John had to dip, so.
Right.
I'm going to thank you on his behalf as well. You got to come back because this season is still quite young. I mean, we have 4 games, or is it 3 games left now? The stretch run, a lot can happen, and it's going to be interesting in Washington and beyond. So come on back and see us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. All right, folks, watch us on Facebook, watch us on YouTube, tell your friends. Tell your family we are here. There's plenty of sports to watch. In the meantime, have a great Christmas holiday. Have a safe holiday season. Come back and see us again next week. Take care.